everyone, and welcome to TheraWin.Tales, your one-stop shop for exploring the beauty of culture and therapy. We have weaved together an expert advices and heartwarming stories for you to navigate on your mental health journey. Today we have a very special guest. Today we are interviewing Swen, who was an Indian national. He came to US for a job, and 13 years later he is now an American citizen. He's faced a lot of challenges throughout the journey. 13 years is a long, long time, and for everyone out there who has just landed in US or has been here is trying to become an American citizen, he's gonna share a lot of challenges that gonna be very interesting for everyone to hear. So, without wasting any time, let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us. So we generally talk, Sven, here a lot more about mental health journeys of people, especially immigrants who are moving to US and who have moved to US. You yourself has been like such an inspiration, right? Working here, helping startups, and so many people out here in US, right? Would love to get to know you more and learn a lot more about your journey, right? Why don't you introduce yourself a little more to our audience?
Yeah, Naman, thank you for having me today. Very excited to have this conversation. I learned about I'm Beside You, and which is probably a parent company and TheraWin few months ago, and very impressed with the solution that you've built. Now, talking a little bit about me, as you rightly said, and it's been almost 2 decades, and time flew by. I came here to US, that I landed in San Jose, and I've still been around the Bay Area. But in 2007, and I came through another company, and then was on H-1B visa at that time, and then went through the entire journey of, as I call it, three phases. Right? It's almost like adapt, immigrate, and responsibilities. And I mean, you might think that why immigrant comes second, right? Why it should come first. In my mind, and many of my friends have seen, is that when they come here, they're thinking that they're going to go back for the first 3, 4 years because for some reason, everybody has different reasons, but the outcome is same. That in after fourth year or so, they change their mind that now we decide to we want to stay here, and that's when I feel that the immigrant phase begins. It's not when you land here. So I've been through the same journey, and it's been exciting, fulfilling, sometimes thrilling, and sometimes anxious and stressful. So happy to chat about that.
Yeah,
Uh,
so as I was saying earlier, it's been quite a journey, and you mentioned time just flew by with all of these challenges. You have overcome so many things and so many, challenges over time here. So that's just something very inspirational for people to hear about, right? So let me begin by the first phase of your life when you got here, right? What was the initial thought process there? What was going in your head? You came, as you mentioned, on H-1B, which
right,
is, I think, like company oriented visa. So you
right.
got a job here, and then based on that, you got a chance to be here, right? So tell us a little more about what was going in your mind. What were the expectations at the time?
Yeah, I guess if I look back, and it's been as some time ago, but I still feel the excitement in me of being able to come to US, Silicon Valley, and work in the cutting edge technology and the companies that are kind of changing the world, right? So that was pretty exciting to come here, and I was personally very interested in emerging technologies, and that's kind of how I thought of Silicon Valley. So that was the good part. There were other parts, but the way I think about it, it's almost like you're transferring a plant from one land to another land,
Yeah.
and the other land is much more fertile, but the plant in the other land definitely needs caring, watering, and the same thing I felt when I came here. Otherwise, if you don't take care of the plant, then you know the obvious outcome. Same thing with us is that you feel stressful, anxious, and sometimes depressed, right? I mean, that was the early part of the journey. I mean, adjusting to the new culture um, and new society. I mean, simple terms, right? the driving left side to right side, getting
Yeah.
getting used to the the spoken norms and the unspoken norms, right? I think that takes time, and you don't have a support system of friends or family who you can get these information in informal manner. So you have to figure everything by yourself. Everything is different. It's just like bank account to credit cards to driving licenses to
Yeah.
renting to getting new friends.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what the early 1 or 2 years just goes in that.
So the
Yeah.
most basic stuff
Yeah.
is so complicated here as well, right? So it is like struggle to just figure it out. Okay, my banking works like this, my finances work like this. All these things are, it does take like 1 or 2 years.
And yeah, especially when you're like I was from a middle class family in India, so I think everything is taken care of for you, and
Yeah.
then you study, and then you get a good job, and most things, even in my times in India, used to get done by a phone call. Like you call the
Mhm.
banker, they will come and open an account for you, etc., etc. This was very different here. So I think it just, and then you are trying to settle into a new job. So there are so many things going on with
Yeah.
you, and then you just feel like, oh, you're always behind. And so I think that was kind of the emotional state at that time.
So like, were you really overwhelmed with how things were going?
Absolutely. And then also, you are trying to fill the void that you have by not having friends and family around you, right? It's the emotional support and being able to talk to them and they knowing your context so they could give you specific advice that would work. Because even if you were to talk to them on phone, they're not here. So they don't know this environment.
Yeah.
So it's just you have to figure everything out by yourself. I mean, there are some coworkers that are very helpful and they help you,
Yeah.
but still, most you have to figure out. Yeah.
So it's a more of a loner's journey overall. Like, okay, you have to figure out banking, housing, all of those things. What kind of support did you have at that time?
I mean, as I said, I think not like I think the coworkers were very helpful,
Mm.
but that's about it. After that, it's just figuring out everything on your own, and that's very different from India, where you could focus on your job, long hours, you could get things done over the weekend, and here it's not that way. So a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I think in India, if you have to do something or get done something for the house, you'll wait for the weekend and then get it done. Here, it's a little more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but tell us a little more about just acquaintances, people living nearby, your neighbors. Were you able to talk to them?
Actually, it's funny that you ask about neighbors because I mean, I used to live in a rented apartment. Yeah, the neighbors never talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody, and that's the other piece that I referred earlier was spoken and unspoken norms and
Mhm.
different culture. Like everybody has their life so cut out and
Mhm.
planned minute by minute that they don't have time for you. Usually, I mean, you see your neighbors, like and say hi, hello over the weekend. Maybe
Yeah.
when you cross by in your like alley,
Yeah.
that's about it. Usually, it's not that. Yeah.
True. Yeah, that's something I have been noticing here as well. Like, no one knows each other. Like,
Right.
even in the same colony, same like street, you'll be living for 20 years and no one would basically be knowing basic details about you.
Correct.
Right. So that is kind of a strange. Was it like a cultural shock for you when you came here?
Yeah, it is a cultural. It was a cultural shock, and it is still a cultural shock. I mean, it's a sad story, but it's a true story that there was a professor sitting or living next to my current house where I live, and he actually passed out in his house, and nobody knew, not including me, until their owner came and called 911.
Wow,
So
that's shock.
that it's just unbelievable, unheard in
Yeah.
the Indian context, right, where we come from. So it's
Yeah.
just yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like that is a very shocking thing, first of all, to not know anything. What about now? Like, are you able to speak to your neighbors now, or has it improved any bit?
Yeah, I think it's much more like you know what their interests are. You can assess their personalities, and you can find common interests to
Hmm.
talk to them and initiate a relationship.
Yeah, it's very, yeah, like individual focused, individualistic, and India, you don't like focus too much on yourself as an individual generally. uh, how was your experience with that culture coming to you? Like, were you able to more focus on yourself? Was it difficult to adjust to this?
I mean, I think I was, you know, personality wise, I was always more independent. So it was, I feel like it was much easier for me to be able to adjust compared to somebody who is like much more friends, family oriented.
Yeah.
But it is still very hard to adapt to. This is like true capitalistic way of living, right? It's India is like social capitalistic, but here it's you know it's not just your work product, but also your ability to network and your ability
Hmm.
to raise awareness about your contributions
Right.
and your ability to talk to three levels up in the organization and build that network and relationship matters a lot more compared to like in other countries or
Hmm.
like growth markets where
True.
you're truly dependent on your superior one level up to kind of represent you and help you. So that's something that I learned along the way too. Yeah,
Again, like another thing I thing which might be an issue is, most of your friends would also be immigrants as well,
correct.
right? So they also have their own situations working out. So,
And you build, I built a lot of local friends,
yeah.
but and they're really nice and understanding and supporting,
Yeah.
but they have no experience of going through this journey. So,
Mhm.
so I mean, it's much harder for them to understand.
Yeah.
It's like why is government doing this? This doesn't make any sense.
Hmm.
I know, but they're doing it. So
Yeah, true. Like for them, it's just like such a alien concept of
right.
like, oh, you need visa. Like even people living in US can travel so frequently with visa. Uh, in India, we can't do
Yeah,
that. So it's such an alien concept to us. Like, okay, you can't travel there. Why? Oh, we
yeah,
need a visa. Yes,
exactly, exactly.
it is a very difficult thing. Were you able to maintain any type of long-term relationships here, with friends, acquaintances?
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends who helped me through that phase,
Hmm.
and I've had strong bonding with them and stayed. Yeah, they're still friends. So that's been, and they've also been in this area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was the good part. Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
That's nice. Okay. So, how difficult was it, or how did you do that? For example, let's say someone is in your stage who's trying to build up relationships. What would be your advice, or what did you think you did right with these people?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a generic advice. It's much more contextual. I read the book many times, Dale Carnegie's
Yeah.
book of How to Win
Influence.
Friends
Yeah.
and Influence People. But some of that could be applied,
Yeah.
but most of it is like contextual
Mhm.
and work and yeah. So there's I don't have any specific advice. I would say.
That's all right. But I'm really glad you were able to make friends, and especially the long term one, because what it seems like is, in 2 months it can be like all you'll have to leave all your relationships, everything, and go back home,
Right.
and there's a very high chance you might never come back,
Right.
right? As well. So those kind of challenges is just kind is still bothersome and very stressful. Someone, I'm really glad you were able to move past that phase and say, okay. So, in general, how long did it take you to get that green card at the end?
I think like from the beginning to end, it was probably 8 years, which is pretty fast.
That's, yeah.
But in terms of the stressful period, I think it was like probably 3 to 4 years, right?
Wow, almost
That's
half of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
half of that time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. And what about like citizenship in general? Like, are you?
Yeah, I think after green card, I think I was able to like feel much more confident. Bought a house, had a kid, and yeah, I think that after that life was pretty smooth and enjoyable. Like you were able to travel and go and meet your family. That's one thing other I didn't mention. Like I didn't meet my parents for 4 years or something like that
Oh.
during that early phase because you have to go if you go out of the country, you have to
Mhm.
go for restamping. You can't get an appointment, and the uncertainty around approval or rejection. And remember, this was the time of the great financial crisis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to be cautious in terms of what you do. So I would say that phase probably lasted a few years, and then your kid is growing up, right? And then that brings a different set of
Challenges. Yeah.
challenges and joys both,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
but yeah, yeah,
That's also another fact, right? Because a lot of people, as you mentioned, come with an ambition that okay, I'm gonna just spend 3 4 years, make a lot of money, go
right,
back to
right,
India, live a
exactly.
life, right? But that doesn't happen, and you're stuck here. And let's say when you decide after 4 years that okay, I want to spend my life here, then also you have to wait such a long time to just buy a house. There's just so much restrictions. Building a life is not easy either, right? So, like you mentioned 8 years is still very early to get a green card. What is
Right.
the general time frame right
Typically,
now?
my friends who came along with me, it took them anywhere between 12 to 15 years to get a green card. That is another challenge, and then citizenship takes another 5 years after that. Doesn't matter too much after you have green card, but you still have to abide by certain conditions of.
So, before you mentioned you get more confident as a person, right? So, before that, is there a feeling inside that I'm an outsider? Okay.
Well, I mean, the culture is very inclusive, and the co-workers that I've found,
Mm.
even with the company that I'm employed with or the clients that I work with, they were very experienced of having so many immigrants coming in
Mm.
here. So I never felt it that way. I always felt welcome and supported. So I'm grateful. And this area also has a lot of other cultures, cultivating and growing. So it's just lucky to be in this area. I've heard friends who are in other parts of the country, they may not be, they are not as lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. But these are very important struggles that I think everyone will might go through, even if they decide to build a life here, right? It's such a struggle to just match everything at the same time, and also there's a lot of luck involved here as well, right? So, tell us a little more about what happens next. You mentioned you had your kid.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
was that? How was, because Indian kids are raised in a very different environment, and we have a lot of different set of values that we want to teach our kid, but
right.
Western culture has a lot of influence now. uh,
It's funny. I would, if possible, I would like to show this picture that I have on my phone. Was from my kid's whiteboard. He's 13-year old, and there's only one line on the whiteboard. It says in caps, "Families, life, and relationships are messy." And it's a 13-year-old. So
wow. Okay.
I don't know if you will expect that from a 13 year
Yeah.
old in India, right?
No.
Like so to your point, I think it's a joy to see them growing and raising them and helping them learn different skills. But then it's also another set of adaptation
Yeah.
that the culture we grew up, or at least I grew up in India, was much more hierarchical, respectful, focused on education, academics, right? It's very different here in terms of what society expects you or what you want to be, right? In terms of
Mm.
being a wholesome kid, learning different skills. I think this is probably too strong a word, but obedient versus influence. And being in kids here, especially the teenagers, think that they are as grown up and they need to be treated. They need to be treated with respect, and that's kind of a shock to the person who has seen many generations before
Yeah.
him respect each other and follow the hierarchy and follow the rules that your parents and grandparents lay out for you,
Yeah.
versus here it's just like wild west, right?
Yeah.
Especially with social media and gaming changing the behavior and
Hmm.
how they spend their times. It's been another interesting journey which I'm still living through to,
That's
yeah.
that's that's nice actually. Like, of course, having a kid is obviously very joyful. You have a family, you feel like you belong here, and so on. But yeah, raising a kid in US compared to what how you have grown up in India
Right.
is just extremely two different things, right? And you mentioned about independence of kids. Like, kids here are a lot more independent. I think maturity comes a lot more earlier here because of the influence that you
Mhm.
get outside as well. When they're kids, they go to school, they face a lot more American audience, Western
Mhm.
audience who has that influence, but at home they have that Indian housewives,
Right.
right? So there's a lot of duality going on where you have to like constantly, not just for kids, I think even for adults also, that might be true that there's a lot of duality in terms of how you behave and treat others at home versus at in outside your house, right? So how did you deal with that, especially with your kids?
Yeah, I guess again I say like I don't have a specific answer, but I feel like you're almost like a pendulum, and you know on the one extreme you feel that you have full control of everything, and other side like the next hour you might feel that you've lost control of everything, and you don't know what is happening, right,
Yeah.
with your kid and family, and they are also influenced by a lot of their peers and how everybody else is doing, and what they want, what they like is very different. So you're just trying your best
Hmm.
to adapt and learn and grow with them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So, how difficult was it to like come to terms with this behavior and this is how I will have to parent now versus the way I was
That's a
trained?
great question, and I honestly don't know that I've fully come to terms with that.
Okay, okay. So you still have like some sort of Indian parenting skills that you're applying or
Yeah, yeah,
trying to
yeah.
apply at least.
I was really good with academics in school and college life. So I almost feel like, if you don't get A plus grade, then you're not good enough, right?
Yeah.
And that's not how they want to live. So it's just always, that's one
Yeah.
example, but then there are many others, right? In terms of healthy eating or spending too much time on YouTube or Netflix, things like that. I always think in my mind like I wouldn't do this if I was him,
Hmm.
but but I'm not him, so
Yeah, so you can't really, of course, like in India, as you mentioned, it's a lot more about obedience and hierarchy levels. So people would still, kids will still listen to you a lot more. But
yeah, I
yeah,
don't know. I mean, I am, or I'm only thinking about the life that I grew up
you
with,
grow
but
up with.
now it may be changing. Who knows? I don't know.
Of course, like kids are like a lot more different now. So there is a sense of some Western culture that has been in India as well because I've seen my, friends' kids or like neighbors and other people who are grown up. They have a lot more liberty now compared to how, let's say, I was grown up. So that's why I wanted to know a lot more about, how you deal with it, how you deal with parenting in general, right?
I mean,
How do
I like there are a lot of seminars and resources that school provides, how to work with your teen, how to
yeah,
influence your teen, or even the work benefits have some of these. And I never used to actually go to those webinars or read those tips. When I was growing up, I never needed anything like this, right? Like
yeah,
I would follow what my parents asked me to do, but then I realized my wife started going to that. one of those, a few of those events, and she asked me to join. And then I realized that these could be actually useful. I mean, they take too long a time for the message that they deliver, but there is some good nuggets in those resources that school provides or your work provides in terms of. I still feel like, I mean, they should just do it because this is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
but they don't.
So, but that's good, because, like, it's important to that you are the one who's adapting and learning. Okay, in India we don't do that. In India we ask the kid to adapt and learn that, okay, this is the way we grew up, this is the way the culture has been, you need to follow that. You mentioned earlier that your son was born before you got the green
Mm,
card,
mm.
right? So, what was your thought process during that time? Because you didn't have a green card, you mentioned there was some sort of lack in confidence as well as a person in general. So, was there any type of fears involved? Because I can imagine starting a family is a big step, right?
Yeah,
So,
I guess. I mean, it was kind of the stage of life that you were in, and then age and biology is another factor. That, yeah, I don't think it was. I mean, we knew that anything could happen in life, but then
hmm.
another thread of life needs to go on, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what was our thinking.
That's
Yeah.
that's nice. But did being in a foreign country has any influence on it
Oh
or
yeah,
impact
in
on
the
it?
sense that again it comes to the support system, right? That you don't have a regular support system like your parents or her
Yeah.
parents to help you through that
Right.
journey. And then on top of that, you have doctor appointments that you have to go in the middle of your work or her work schedule, and it's just very disruptive. And because doctors don't work on the weekends,
Yeah. True. Yeah.
and
Right.
then I guess you can bring your family here to support you even when your child is born, right? You're mostly on your own, taking care of everything, including pre-birth, after birth, and then the sleepless nights. So you're trying to balance your job, your responsibility to family, and then on top of that, the same like visa and yeah, immigration
Yeah.
related issues. So
So
yeah.
the support systems get slightly weak, but it does, like, bring a lot of fear inside, and okay, how will I manage and so on. But those are general fears as well as a father or a new father.
Yeah, I don't know if you get so much time to think about all this. At that time,
At
like
the time, it's just
it's just
okay.
like you're just like getting through the day. Like there's so many things to take care of, so you have no time to reflect back.
Right.
Uh, yeah,
Right. That seems fair. I think during that time you have a lot going on anyways, so
yeah.
you don't think about, okay, immigration or anything else. What happened when you got green card after the son was born? What was the environment like at home?
I think as I said, like right after the green card, I think it just became much more enjoyable. You now lived in the country, the
Mhm.
ways, etc. So yeah, I think that was probably the best like period of enjoying the land of opportunity, as they
Yeah.
say. Yeah, so I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good actually, because it's a huge milestone, right? Such a
Right.
huge milestone as well, such as aspirational thing to get, because especially for immigrants, that is one thing that everyone's after.
A lot
But
more travel.
you mentioned also, like, there are still some restrictions on green card.
Yeah, I'm a
Um,
citizen now, so it's
yeah,
not
now,
not a challenge. But
of
yeah,
course.
for green card, I think is that you can't stay more than 6 months out of the country, or you have to
Hmm.
inform the government
Yeah.
so that they can know that you're out of the country.
Right, right. So, tell us about a little more the citizenship aspects of things, like after green card, how long it took.
Yeah, I think it took us like almost 5 years to get the citizenship. Funny that our citizenship interviews and the oath taking ceremony was
Yeah,
during pandemic. So I think it's a big day for anybody to get citizenship,
yeah,
and it's a lot of celebration. But for us, the ceremony was in the parking lot, everybody got out of their car with masks on. The officer was speaking on a loudspeaker, and that's how we all got the oath. So it's a memory in your mind always.
Yeah,
It was kind of a little bit of an ornament, I would say, in terms of citizenship,
compared to the green
compared to
card
the green card
celebration.
and the prior
Yeah,
phases. Yeah.
yeah, but it took you over 13 years. I guess the average time would be 25 years because,
It could be, yes, yes, if you're in EB2 category or
yeah,
things like that.
right.
Yeah.
So that's such a
That's
almost
almost
a
a lifetime,
lifetime. Yeah.
lifetime, right? I mean, you come here when you're 25 to
Mm,
30, and
true.
then for the entire almost your adult working life, just
Yeah.
waiting for that green card. Well, I saw a funny post. I think one of our college mates, he works here, and he got his number plate, like the California number plate. You can
Yeah.
customize it. He changed it to say H1B for life.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, but okay, have you gotten your number plate customized
No, I
anywhere
think
else?
that's no, I'm not into that. But I think a lot more freedom and a lot more ability to do things that you
Yeah.
like, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I changed from classic consulting to more working in startup, more ability to take risks. Yeah, and just doing things that you like
Yeah.
compared to sticking with your job that would keep your H1B alive, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of what I feel the freedom and the liberty after green card and citizenship.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just tell us a little more about how many startups you're working with so far. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think I have been working with probably a ton, but in the campus, there are around 40 startups in the Japan Innovation Campus, right? The office members. So, depending on who wants to support, I usually am able to either help them personally or get the right network to help them, right? Whether it's a venture
right.
capitalist or partners or customers or any sort of product market fit insights. Like you're always learning about what these founders are trying to build
Yeah.
and how they're changing the world a bit by bit, right? Everybody's taking their shot at solving a problem that they believe is crucial for society to make progress, right? So
True.
it just inspires me to be around these people and, help them, learn from them,
Yeah.
make friends and build community with them. So I think it's just, yeah.
That's nice because living in Silicon Valley, you cannot escape the startup ecosystem in general.
Uh,
But seems like you have a. Is your job very high paced or is it slow? Is it how
Oh,
does it
I mean,
work?
it's multitasking, doing so many things at a time. So
Yeah.
the pace is pretty high, and
Yeah.
you're physically tired, but you're mentally very engaged and energized, right? So I think that's how I feel many days.
Right, right. Is that does that get stressful anymore? Like, if it does, what type of support systems now you look up to?
Yeah, in terms of like stress, I think one is you get better as at coping with stress, right? As time progresses, because you kind of expect things to happen and you become ready for unexpected in some ways. But I mean, the stresses are part of everybody's life. I don't know for the coping that I do anything specific as such, right?
Hmm.
And I think I should. Like I was looking at the health app yesterday
Yeah,
from Apple,
yeah,
and I didn't realize that they have the mental health questionnaire
yeah,
now,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I was like very surprised that mental health is now becoming like top of the agenda for everybody. I think I should work on it, but it's just how you grew up that this was not a thing.
Yeah, that's a
So
very
it's just not the default option on your mind when you get stressed or are anxious, right? So I think it's just changing the wiring of your brain and making that a default option. That's kind of what I think I need to work on. Yeah.
that's true. But what you said, like in India or let's say in South Asia in general, we are not really taught how to deal with certain things, especially stress. If you, for example, if I go to my parents and tell them, okay, I'm stressed, they would just say, oh, just stop thinking about it, right? So that's a common advice you get, right? Don't think anything negative. Right. But yeah, like I'm glad now you have some understanding at least that okay, we need to deal with certain things in certain ways. What about before this, when you were going through so much struggle? Did you have any coping mechanisms back then? Were there any support systems back
I
then?
mean, no, and I didn't even know that I should look for support systems or anything
Mhm.
like that. So it's just I look back and I feel that if there was things that were there, like easily accessible, I could tap on them, and it came to my mind that this could be helpful. The life those years could have been spent with much less stress and anxiety than what I did.
Yeah, true, true. I think there's a lot of education that goes in here, and the just the awareness of it is missing. Plus, sometimes you are so in such a situation where you are so overwhelmed with, you cannot make mental health or yourself a priority anymore. It takes some time, I think, just to understand that this is a priority. Are you able to do that now?
Yeah, I think much more, and also the resources are easily accessible, and there is a lot more talk in the society, media. Also, as I said, practically from my kids' like school and the resources that I get from work. Everybody talks about mental health, right? As I said, even Apple started looking at mental health. So I think yes, now it's more like yes, there is something there that I could go and tap into, but I haven't actually spent time on that to figure out what is it that would help me, or in
Right.
what scenarios, what situations. Of course, there is Chat GPT, and you can ask
Yeah.
it anything. But
Yeah.
the point is that you should find time to do that.
That's true, but it seems like now you're a lot more open to the idea itself. Like,
Right.
okay, but I think it takes some time to understand. Okay, these support systems are needed. There are some mechanisms that I need to bring in place just to support my life in general, right? So the amount of stress you have can be reduced through these mechanisms, and that awareness I think is now increasing, but still there is a lot to do here, right? What changed that? What brought these concepts in your life?
No, I mean, I guess it's more organic than a one
Hmm.
incident or two that made me change my mind. But the more I saw people being positive and how they react to situations by like around you, seeing people what's happening with them and how they react, just made me learn that few of
Yeah.
my workers got co-workers got cancer or things like that, but they were still very positive and hopeful and things like that. So that kind of raised like a question in my mind is like, one is what is happening, which is beyond your control, but how you react and how you respond is you can control a little bit of that, and that brings you in a better state of mind,
Yeah.
and the time that you have, you are
Mhm.
able to better enjoy that
Yeah.
compared to like being stressed and all the time because something didn't work out the way you wanted it to be. It could be
Hmm.
professional or personal. Yeah.
Right. So it's a lot more about your outlook on the world. Like, okay, this happened. Fine, I'll deal with it in a positive way. Just dealing with things is not something we're taught as well.
Right, right.
Yeah, it takes some time to learn about it. Right. Would you recommend something like this, like throughout the challenges that you have mentioned? A lot of people go through the same thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
would you recommend this type of help to someone like this, or is it a particular stage where you think this is the most helpful? Like,
I feel like this should become kind of part of their lifestyle, right?
yeah.
And it shouldn't be that you go to this when you need it. If it becomes part of your life, then you naturally become much more calmer and much more controlling of your own reaction and
Yeah.
how you respond. So your personality, your behavior, your mind becomes calmer, maybe with
True.
these tools and techniques that is available now. Right?
True, I agree. Yeah, that's true. I think there's a lot of understanding that goes into here, right? Just the lot of psychoeducation
Mhm.
about how you deal with yourself and things happening to you. That's really important to have, and as you said, like you need to make it a lifestyle. You need to bring it in one of your core values that I'm going to take care of myself. Right? So that is something which not a lot of people are able to do, even though it's so difficult, right? I want to first of all understand within all this, since you didn't have a support system, right? What drove you at those times? Like what got you out of it? Not just from a mental health perspective. Of course, stress was there, and we understand that will be there. But what drove you to keep pushing and just keep trying again and again, and not just go back?
Yeah, I think going back was not a bad option. I mean, kind of what I really wanted to do for the first 4 years. But then, as I learned more about US and career and technology, and I've personally been very, very interested in new tech all my life. So I realized that there is no better place to build a career like this other than US and maybe Silicon
Hmm.
Valley. That realization drove me, right? That yes, somehow things need to work out for
Yeah.
me to kind of build a career here. Yeah, that ambition, that desire, just kept me going, I think. Yeah.
That's great because these are certain things which are, you have to hustle a lot and it takes a lot of ambition, a lot of drive that, gets lost somewhere when you are in a situation like this. But I'm glad that drive was so strong that you were able to push through all of this because now also like these days you see a lot of people just talking about going back to India, right? Or just staying in India is a lot more easier option. India has grown up a lot, like
Right, right.
grown in terms of startup ecosystems and just corporate in general. And there has been a lot of things that have developed over the years.
Mhm.
For someone coming to US now, what kind of options do you think there are? Like, do you think it's still a viable option, or if there are differences in terms of what they value, what those values would look like in terms of staying in India versus staying in US?
Yeah, and we have this, discussion all the time in our house. Friends and family are still back home. Parents are not getting younger by the day, and you lose many life events, right? Siblings, the nephews, the nieces, married, have kids, and you have never met them, right? For many, many years. Whereas when you growing up, you were playing with them almost every day, right?
Yeah.
So you miss a lot of things. And even when you go back to India for 2, 3 weeks, you can't catch up with everybody. Everybody's busy with, their lives, things like that, right? So that's one side of it that always comes to your mind. And the other side is, the life you have built here. You have great education for your kids, and you
Hmm.
have a successful career, and you'll enjoy the work that you're doing, brings purpose to you. So it's just always like trying to balance and see which side is more forceful or impactful in that particular day or situation. But yeah, for I feel personally, and this is my personal opinion, that for a technology career, working with emerging tech companies in a concentrated like space of 50
Yeah.
miles, this is as good a place as any in the world. And I still love the emerging tech, the new tech, and want to be part of it. So that's kind of what still keeps me around here,
Yeah.
which is kind of has been my ambition even since the beginning. So the founders, the ecosystem that is here comes up with something new and world changing all the time. So if you want to be part of the action, I think
Hmm.
this is my desire, and that's
Yeah.
why I am still here.
That's amazing. I think there's a lot more happening here. So according to you, you do think there's a good chance and good future staying here as well. Of course, I think India is still an option, but most people, do you think for most people, it's still a good idea to come to US and work here at least?
Yeah, I think it's a personal choice, but I feel like working here, learning from the founders, and thinking like them is always it changes your perspective on your professional life. And who knows what happens in future, but and India is growing so fast that now it's changing pretty rapidly, and there are a lot more opportunities in India. I think this place is as good as anybody else, or as it was many years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, I think then in that case, I think the recommendation would be at least to come here, spend some time, so
Yeah,
that you get an exposure type of things. Okay, this is how things are built here.
right.
I think that would be a really valid option for most people, right? I think on that note, that's all the questions I had so far. Incredible insights overall. Like so much to learn, so much to just experience through your eyes. It's great. Thank you so much, Sven, for joining us today. I hope you really have a lot of fun with working with startups here, and of course, raising your kids, building a family. Right. I wish you all the best for all of it. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So, and I wish you good luck with TheraWin.Health.
Oh, thank you so much.